Have you ever wondered how clocks work?
Clocks are everywhere. They're in your watches, in your computers, on the walls of your house, and some are very loud. Clocks have a fascinating history. Humans have used a bunch of ways to measure time. We've looked at the stars, we've looked at the sun, we used sand, we used water, and we've used EK and EG. Wait, what? Pendulum clocks, the father of all modern clocks.
I am your father.
The pendulum clock relies on the swinging of the pendulum to produce equivalent time intervals in order to measure time. Therefore, EK and EG. What is EK and EG?
Let me explain. EK means kinetic energy, and EG means gravitational potential energy. Kinetic energy is the energy that an object has due to its speed. Gravitational potential energy is the energy that an object has due to its height. The faster an object moves, the higher the EK, and the higher an object is, the higher the EG. A pendulum clock works thanks to the swinging of a pendulum. More specifically, a pendulum clock uses the alternation of EK and EG to function. Let me explain. When the weight is at its maximum height, gravitational potential energy is at its maximum. We all know that gravity likes to pull things down. Thus, the gravitational potential energy becomes speed as the pendulum falls. At the bottom of the arc, all the gravitational potential energy has been transferred to kinetic energy. The kinetic energy will then cause the pendulum to climb some height, and the kinetic energy will be transformed back into gravitational potential energy. The cycle then begins. The law of conservation of energy states that in a closed environment, a moving object cannot lose its energy. So, theoretically, the pendulum should repeat its motion forever. However, due to air resistance and all manner of other factors, the pendulum will eventually stop. This is why a pendulum requires a source of energy to keep it working. This is usually a weight that is attached to the gears that keep the pendulum clock in motion. And again, gravitational potential energy is at work. The weight that is attached to the gears is using gravitational potential energy to keep the clock working. Now that you understand how the pendulum works, I will dive into the history of the machine. The idea of the pendulum was conceived by Galileo Galilei. His son actually partially built a prototype. They were the first ones to think about using the swinging of an object to keep time. Sadly, Galileo Galilei and his son did not succeed in making a working prototype of the pendulum clock. It would be a Dutch scientist and inventor, Christian Huygens, who will be the first to create a working prototype and patent the pendulum clock. The earliest pendulum clocks have a wide pendulum swing of about 100 degrees. The largest swing was caused by a mechanism called verge escapement, which was the mechanism used in most time-keeping machines at the time. However, a large swing amplitude will cause the clock to become less accurate. Thus, clockmakers have developed a new mechanism that allows the swing amplitude to be decreased to less than 5 degrees. This mechanism is called anchor escapement, and it was developed around the year 1670. This improvement led to the creation of the famous grandfather clocks that people place in their living rooms during the 19th century. The history of the pendulum clock was filled with technological and physics discoveries. Actually, the invention of the pendulum clock was due to the discovery of the isochronism of pendulums. This discovery is the foundation on which pendulum clocks were built. Isochronism describes an event that occurs regularly and uses the same amount of time every time the motion repeats itself. The swinging of a pendulum is a perfect example of isochronic motion. It takes the same amount of time for the pendulum to reach one end and for it to reach the other end. Another big improvement made to the pendulum clock was the introduction of anchor escapement, which I briefly discussed earlier. Originally, pendulum clocks relied on verge escapement to keep the pendulum swinging and display time. The mechanism works like so. However, verge escapement requires a swing amplitude of more than 30 degrees, which greatly decreases the accuracy of the clock. It was found that a pendulum swinging at a high amplitude is no longer isochronic. Therefore, anchor escapement replaced verge escapement. Anchor escapement works like so. This allowed the reduction of the swing amplitude to only a few degrees, thereby increasing accuracy.
Clocks are amazing, and it is so surprising to see that so much effort went into the creation of pendulum clocks. Alas, pendulum clocks are relics of the past. With so many technological breakthroughs in the field of electricity, clocks have become more accurate than ever. Now, atomic clocks can reach such high accuracy that they only lose 1 second every 100 million years. Can you imagine it? Anyways, I hope you've learned a lot about pendulum clocks after watching, and I'll see you next time.